UFC Fight Night, Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. Welcome to the main card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, of course. I go by Harris as usual, giving you that fight-by-fight breakdown and analysis from the betting perspective specifically. Here to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights you want to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action towards the end of the video as well. For this UFC Fight Night London event, of course, this is taking place in London in the O2 Arena. 13 fights in total. We covered the first 7 that are on the prelim. We have 6 fights to go for this main card. Before that, please make sure, again, you subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up, and participate in the comments. We definitely want to hear from you. But, we're going to go right to it. We're going to sort of finish off this card here. A lot of UK fighters on it, and we're going to go right to fight number 1 of that main card. Jay Herbert, Ilia Topuria. Jay Herbert being the UK fighter here. But let's break these fighters down. Jay Herbert beat Worthy back in October. We know he's very agile on the feet. We know he's very light on the feet. Likes to keep his jab hand very active. A lot of fake jabs, a lot of touch jabs. Very diverse with his jabs, which shows a high level of striking. Mixes in that sharp straight within that. Again, just a pretty, solid striker, if nothing else, because he's definitely not going to land takedowns. At least he hasn't shown it at all in his game. Ilia Topuria, on the other hand, beat Ryan Hall back in July. We know this is one of those young fighters that can kind of do everything. Really good boxing, good long jab, good level changes, powerful overhand right, good combinations, good power. Cuts the ring off really well, especially with the movement I'm anticipating from Jay Herbert. I can see that being a factor, but more importantly, with cutting the ring off with that good constant pressure, I am anticipating a lot of wrestling from Ilia Topuria here. He's a wrestling specialist. He's a ground specialist. He'll shoot for the takedown. He has that Greco-Roman background, fight controlling top position, good deep submission attempts as well. Really good jiu-jitsu to go along with it, just to kind of top it off here. Ilia is the undefeated fighter. I'll keep it really short. I think he's going to remain undefeated. I like Ilia Topuria all day in this one. We think Jay Herbert's past couple of opponents, Renato Moicano took Jay Herbert down 5 times. Francisco Trinaldo took Jay Herbert down twice. That tells me Ilia Topuria is going to be able to do whatever he wants in this fight. I can't even necessarily say Jay Herbert is the better striker. He might be the more pure striker, but Topuria, to me, just as dangerous on the feet as he is on the ground. So again, keeping it really short, Topuria all day here.
Yeah, what you got to look at in this fight, Topuria has an advantage almost everywhere in this matchup. And the wrestling is such a big advantage, the grappling. Jay Herbert is going to be the taller guy. I think he fights out it. I think he's English. Yeah, he's English. So yeah, he's 6'1". This guy's gonna have like 9-8-inch reach advantage on Topuria. So he needs to land a heavy shot. He needs to go all out and land that shot to get the win here. Because if he doesn't knock out Topuria, Topuria's gonna close that distance. If not, uses really good boxing, his crisp boxing inside, he's gonna take him right down to the mat and dominate him on the mat. If he doesn't finish him, it's gonna be a 10-8 type of round. That's how this fight's gonna go. And Jay Herbert hasn't shown me that he has that one-shot kill, that heavy hitter quitter. I haven't seen that from Jay Herbert. So I don't think he has a chance here. I don't think he has a shot here. The odds are not good, but I think Topuria is a safe parlay piece that I don't see how he loses this fight. This guy is gonna be a contender. It's a matter of time. Again, as I said in the prelim video, this is a top 5 fighter for me in the entire UFC, pound for pound. On my list, this is my guy. I like Ilia here to get it done, and I think he shows out.
Second fight of the main card, Molly McCann, Luana Carolina. Molly McCann beat Ji Young Kim back in September. Look for her to start really fast, especially being in the UK. Brawler type of stand-up. Her striking is somewhat serviceable. She can switch stance. She has a good overhand hook as well. Look for her to press forward, at least early in the fight. She sits on her punches again, putting a little pop behind them. She does have a bit of diversity though, right? 1.7 takedowns per fight, 32% accuracy. That tells me that she's going for it, and that tells me that she's landing it. I don't think she has an overwhelming takedown ability, in my opinion, but again, it's something that she could potentially land here. The biggest gripe I would say whenever considering betting on Molly McCann is that she's always in a fight that looks like it's 50-50. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that's the case here as well. And I think the odds are sort of reflecting that. We're seeing Luana Carolina as a slight underdog here. She's on a 2-fight win streak. She beat Lupita Godinez back in October. And again, another example, I mentioned it on the prelim video, another example of how important these weight divisions are. Because we know Lupi came in at 122 pounds in that fight, if I'm not mistaken, and Carolina was just too big for her. Luana Carolina, Muay Thai style fighter. She looks good when she's putting them together, but she does start slow. She isn't active enough, in my opinion. She is a southpaw. She'll switch stance. She'll fight tall. Like I said, going back to the Muay Thai stance, fights from the outside, decent Thai clinch, unsurprisingly, has the knees, has the elbows. Don't really think she has the best striking defense, though, or best takedown defense, despite her 88% takedown defense in 4 fights. Again, I think a lot of that was potentially inflated in that Lupita Godinez fight. Has a solid guard, though. She won't take too much damage, and she is pretty durable cardio-wise. So going to be interesting to see what happens going up against a Molly McCann who does slow down. I think the key for Molly McCann here will be the clinch situations against the cage. Making it ugly, dirty boxing, things like that. I think McCann has that ability to do so. I think the wrestling is also a must for McCann in order to, swing some of these closer rounds that I'm anticipating here. There is a potential that as this fight progresses, Carolina can start to win striking exchanges, really widen the gap with her striking. She is the better striker here without question. I want to make that clear. But with McCann's style, especially fighting at home, looks like they moved her to the main card. I am expecting her to be pumped. I am expecting her to start early. And I think that quick start will help her to identify what she's going to need to win the round. Whether it's she gets a takedown and then she does it again in round 2, or whether it's, hey, Holly Holmes style, I'm going to hold you against the cage and just score points on the cage. I think she's going to potentially identify what she needs to do early in that fight and then kind of repeat that in the second round. Even when she's tired, which I anticipate, I think she can put herself in a good position to at least get the nod from the judges. And again, the type of fight that I'm anticipating is the type of fight where Molly McCann is winning the first 7 minutes of this fight. It's just what happens for that last 8. Does she lose badly? Does she somewhat lose? And more importantly, I anticipate Carolina taking round 3. I anticipate McCann taking round 1. And being in England, I think the first 2 minutes of that second round going in McCann's favor could be enough for her to get the nod from the judges. So not that I'm feeling confident about McCann here, but I am thinking home field advantage. I am thinking she's going to be pumped. And I am thinking that she's going to essentially will her way to victory, as opposed to even really being the better fighter. I can't necessarily say that because both of these women are quite unreliable. But again, in making a pick, I have to go with the hometown fighter, Molly McCann. Hesitant pick. Don't bet on this. Don't include this in anything. Don't go dog or pass. Just completely avoid this fight at all costs. But in making a pick, I'm going Molly McCann.
Yeah, I like your warnings on this fight. It is a tough fight because Luana Carolina has that reach advantage. And in her fight versus Botello, Botello was putting on pressure. And watch the fight. Luana was literally like running away the whole fight. And she got Botello to come in and she was just able to land. It was a close fight that could have went either way. Luana won a split decision that fight. But that fight was important to me because we know Molly McCann likes to put on that pressure, likes to follow, likes to march you down. And in this fight, she's likely going to be the one marching Luana down. She's gonna have the wrestling advantage. Luana though is tall, so it's hard to take her down. But you can't gauge that Lupita Godinez fight because she was going up in weight, and in the woman division, 10 pounds, like a 10-pound difference in weight class is a big difference when you're only 115 pounds. So if the difference is 10 pounds, that's like almost 10% of your body weight. Like that's a big deal. So for Lupita to go up in weight 10 pounds and try to fight this girl in her weight class, you can't give Luana all that credit for stopping the takedowns against a fighter that was pretty much like almost half her size, right? Molly McCann's rugged. She's stronger than Lupita. I'm not going to say she has better grappling or wrestling, but Lupita just needed a bit more strength to get those takedowns. She was getting in on the hips. She was getting in, and she just couldn't physically get it done. Molly would be able to get it done in that position. Molly's boxing's good. She has that phone booth style where that's where she thrives. She gets really close in that phone booth, and she lets it go. She has good hands. She has pretty good head movement as well. And I'm going with Molly McCann here. I think this could be a fight that can go either way. But again, this is in England, so this is a close fight, and both fighters tend to go decision, tend to have pretty close fights. You got to think Molly's sharper shots, because she's going to be the better boxer in this fight. Luana's going to be running around the ring, running away, kicking. So for the judges, you got to think Molly's going to look far better for the judges. And I'm not even sure, but I think she's the only English female fighter they have. I don't think there's another one. There might be another one, but off the top of my head, they might have another one. But Molly McCann, they need her to win this fight. They need her to win. Luana, there's a lot of Brazilians, right? So I think in a close fight, I think the judges in England, they have a history of being sketchy sometimes, taking Dan Henderson, losing to Bisping in England. So there's a lot of sketchy decisions in that part of the country. I'm sorry, in that part of the world. So I think it could happen here if it's a close fight, but I think Molly even has enough to win a unanimous decision here. So I like Molly McCann here. I think if it gets close, the judges will bail her out. But I think her style of fighting, her marching her down, is going to look good for the judges. In a close fight, they may sway Molly to get the win. So again, I'm with Harris. Be careful betting on this fight. But I think Molly has enough to get it done. But again, she's so much at a reach advantage. So keep that in mind.
Fight number 3, Gunnar Nelson, Takashi Sato. Gunnar Nelson, it's been over 2 years since his last fight. He lost to Gilbert Burns way back September 2019. Also on a 2-fight losing streak, although can't really put too much value on that, A, considering the time that he's been off, and B, considering that those 2 opponents were Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards. Well-rounded fighter. He has that signature, light on the feet karate type of style. He'll lunge in at times to close distance pretty quickly. Very inactive at times, though. He has kind of periods where he just kind of goes to sleep. We see his significant strike numbers there pretty low. Also has the ability to land takedowns, almost 2 takedowns a fight, 55% accuracy. He's going to chain wrestle. He has that grappling knowledge as well. Ultimately what I'm saying with Gunnar Nelson, very well-rounded skill set, but he is somebody who can be outworked. He is somebody who can be outpaced and even overwhelmed. And that's essentially what we saw from his losses, were people that just were doing more than he was. Takashi Sato, maybe not that fighter to do that necessarily. He last competed in November 2020. He lost to Miguel Baeza. Good stand-up, good boxing. He's introduced as a striker. He's a southpaw. Bit of a karate-like stance in his own right. He can put the pressure on as he closes distance. A lot of fakes, a lot of in and out movement, decent timing. Doesn't really move the head much though. He absorbs more than he dishes out. He has that judo background, of course, that's going to help him with his takedown defense, which is coming in at 75%. And of course, that's going to be very relevant in this fight. But Takashi Sato, a bit of a one-dimensional fighter, a bit straightforward in his approach, not too much diversity in his game. And I'll keep it short. Gunnar Nelson, we see -410, which I think is too much. But I like Nelson just simply due to the diversity. Although Nelson is somebody who can be outworked, like I said, Takashi Sato is not really that guy to do that. And like I said, I also believe, Nelson has more advantages here. He has the advantage with the wrestling. He has the advantage with the grappling. And, his striking is okay, at least in terms of, keeping his opponents guessing. So I think he's going to resort to the wrestling, the clinch work, the grappling to win rounds. And I think the striking, I can't say Sato has a dominant enough style to really give Gunnar a lot of problems on the feet. Again, I think Gunnar is too steep at minus 410, but I feel pretty good about picking him to actually win the fight. I just won't be putting this on any parlays.
Yeah, I hear you, man. This is a tough one. This is a tough fight because Gunnar has been out of action for such a time that we don't know what we're getting out of Gunnar. Well, Takashi Sato has been active, and he does have heat in his hands, and Gunnar Nelson can be knocked out. So this is a tough fight. We got a grappler versus a striker. I had to creep their Instagrams to see what's going on. Couldn't get much from that because Sato looked really good. Training with Sanford MMA. So there's a bunch of guys there in his division, above his division or below his division or equal to his division. So there's a lot of guys there. He's getting real good training out there. He looks good on Instagram. He looks in shape. He looks ready. And then when I look at Gunnar Nelson, he looks like he's taking it serious. Again, he's going to be fighting in Europe, so he's going to have a lot of motivation for this fight, his comeback fight. The big issue with Sato for me is he gets submitted. This guy, you can take him down. You can take his back, and that's where Gunnar shines. So I think at some point, Gunnar's going to get him down. Going to get him down. I think he's going to somehow get him submitted. If not, I think Gunnar has enough for 2 rounds to at least take him down. I don't think Sato has good takedown defense, and that's going to be a big issue in this fight. So I'm going to go with Gunnar Nelson here. But again, you got to be cautious on this pick because, as I said, Sato looks good on Instagram. He looks really good training with better wrestlers than Gunnar Nelson on a daily basis. So you got to be careful. Gunnar has been out of action for such a time. I'm just looking at it. He's motivated. He's fighting in Europe. He's fighting a guy that's kind of tailored to his style. He can get him to the ground, utilize his grappling. So I like Gunnar in this spot, but you got to be careful. We don't know what we're getting with Gunnar being out that long.
Fight number 4, Paddy Pimblett, Kazula Vargas. Pimblett is on a 3-fight win streak. He won his debut versus Luigi Vendramini. Solid on the feet, decent calf kick, fights from the outside, likes to use a lot of kicks in general to keep the fight at range. We know he's a ground specialist. We know he has good grappling, good tight top control, good submission attempts, good ground and pound as well. And I mean, of course, after his last fight, you got to respect his chin. You got to respect his heart, his ability to be the aggressor, let the hands loose, and his ability to finish. That said, again, keeps that chin up. Yes, he's shown an iron chin so far, but it does make him hittable. For Kazula Vargas, he beat Zhu Rong in April. He's a southpaw. He can potentially clip him, right? Because he does put a lot of pressure on you, especially early in the fight. But not really the quickest, doesn't really have the best movement. He throws a lot into his strikes. But like I said, that speed discrepancy could keep Paddy Pimblett safe here. Kazula Vargas can land takedowns at some point, although only 1 takedown in 3 UFC fights. So I'm not going to necessarily call that a strength of his. Keeping it short, they're clearly giving Paddy Pimblett another winnable fight here. Kazula Vargas, 36 years old. Somebody who's only had 4 fights since 2018. Paddy Pimblett, of course, the young, marketable British fighter fighting in the UK here. Pimblett potentially it could also be better everywhere. Again, you have to respect Vargas's hands, but I don't feel like his striking is necessarily better than Pimblett's with what he's shown me. I also think Pimblett, again, has the better overall ground game, plus being in England kind of speaks for itself. So keeping it short, Paddy Pimblett, I feel pretty confident in that pick.
Yeah, this is a good fight. This is a good marquee fight to showcase Pimblett's style against Vargas. Watching Pimblett in Cage Warriors though, those past years, one thing I will say, he went to that grappling a lot, and obviously in his first fight in the UFC, he got that knockout. I'm concerned he's going to want to come out and in front of his fans get another knockout. I hope he goes back to his bread and butter, which is the grappling, and I think he can pick those legs up, take him down, do a lot of damage in the guard, do a lot of damage on top. I think he can outclass him on the ground. I think that's the route he has to take, but he's getting all this recognition. He's the next guy up. Again, I don't think he's that guy, but he's getting a lot of press, so he might want to keep it standing. And I think that's playing into Vargas's plans. Vargas is dangerous. This guy can he can fight. This guy can fight. If you give him the fight he wants, he can look good at certain moments. So if you want to strike with Vargas, Vargas can catch you. He has that toughness. I think Paddy needs to go down to the mat. Now, back in the day in Cage Warriors, another thing you got to factor in, Paddy wasn't as strong, like physically. He looks completely different in that UFC fight than every other fight I've seen him in prior to his UFC debut. His UFC debut, he put on muscle. He was the strongest I've ever seen that guy. He almost looked different to me. And I think with that extra strength, if you utilize that grappling, I think it could be an easy win for him, where I could say, yeah, it's a parlay piece. But just because he might want to go out there, get another highlight knockout, I think that plays into Vargas's plan. So I think Paddy wins this fight. I think he is the better wrestler. I think striking wise, he may be the more effective striker, but I think that's playing into Vargas's strategy striking. So again, it's a tough fight because I'm not sure which direction he's going to go in. But if he wrestled, it's going to be simple. But if he strikes, he could still win. But I think that he's going to make it a harder fight than it needs to be. So I'm going to go Paddy Pimblett, but I have question marks. So I'm not sure how he's going to go in. Again, we only saw one fight in the UFC. He stood there the whole time. He fought a high-level jiu-jitsu fighter, which might be the reason why. Well, let's see what he does. I can't vouch that this is a lock yet because I'm not sure the style he's going to go into the fight with.
All right, let's move on to the co-main event. We have Arnold Allen taking on Dan Hooker, of course, this being in the featherweight division, where we know Dan Hooker is coming down in weight. Arnold Allen is on a 10-fight win streak. He beat Sadiq Youssef back in April. He's a southpaw on the feet, good overall stand-up, good movement, good jab especially, good combinations as well. Good MMA boxing in general. I mean, he's patient on the feet. He picks his spots really well. He does fight out the back foot off times at times though. So that could stop him from looking dominant in comparison to his ability on the feet, because he is a really good striker. Dan Hooker lost to Islam Makhachev in October. He's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. So of course he made the decision to move down a weight class. We know that he is a lengthy, rangy striker. He's going to have 5 inches in height, I should say, 5 inches in reach as well. He uses his jab. He has crisp boxing. Has that sort of constant pressure. We know that he trains at City Kickboxing. We know the camp that's there with Izzy and the boys. Puts that sort of constant pace on. Uses it to control center of the octagon. Uses a very effective calf kick, especially for distance control. Good movement. He can avoid the punch, and he has good combinations in his own right. I do think this fight stays on the feet. I know that Arnold Allen has some takedown numbers to his name, almost 1.5 per fight. We know that it's going to be an advantage for him, as is the case against many City Kickboxing fighters. But I do think this fight will stay on the feet. And to your point about the last fight, the crowd might play a factor here in terms of keeping it on the feet. I think it's hard to tell whether this fight was made to further propel Arnold Allen, or if it was made to sort of accelerate Dan Hooker's ranking in this featherweight division. Interesting kind of to get behind the mind of the UFC matchmakers here. But I like Hooker slightly in this one. In some ways it's boxer versus kickboxer in some ways. Hooker, like I said, is going to have 4 or 5 inches in height, 5 or 6 inches in reach. in addition to just being the fighter that's going to more likely use his kicks, whereas Arnold Allen is a lot more boxing. But more importantly, I think Hooker has that ability to put pressure on. And like I said, Arnold Allen allows himself to be backed up, to fight from the outside, and just visually, it doesn't look that good. I think about the Dan Hooker versus Nasrat Haqparast fight. I'm not saying Arnold Allen is the same fighter. He's not. But I think the fight could go somewhat similarly, even being in London. I think Hooker for me is the smarter pick. I'm seeing a lot of money coming in on Arnold Allen. I want to see if Hooker becomes a bigger underdog in this one, because if he does, then I'm probably making a small side bet on Dan Hooker here. Not a confident pick, so not something I'm going to say be all over or put the house on or parlay at all. But I am going to go with Dan Hooker to get this one.
Yeah, this is a good fight. I'll be quick. I'm going Arnold Allen. I just think, as you mentioned, this likely will be a striking match, and I just think Arnold is the sharper striker, the better boxing, and he has that wrestling to fall back on. And if not, he can hold you against the cage. Dan Hooker coming down in weight. He hasn't been in this division since 2016. I'm not sure how he's going to handle a high-paced fight against Arnold Allen. I'm pretty sure Arnold Allen accepted this fight, because if you look at the people he's faced, he hasn't really stepped it up until he fought Sodiq Yusuff. So he's either getting he's either getting brought along carefully, or he is pretty much picking and choosing his opponents that he thinks he can beat. So I think he picked Dan Hooker knowing that he can beat this guy at this point in this division, and I believe him. So I'm going to go Arnold Allen here to get it done.
Main event of the evening in that case, Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. Volkov beat Marcin Tybura back in October. Good striker, especially for the heavyweight division. Likes to come forward, likes to put the pressure on. Good jab, smooth, quick combinations, straight punch combinations. Throws 4 to 6 punches at a time. We know he's going to be the long striker here. Aspinall, kind of a bigger guy than we thought. He's only gonna Volkov is only gonna have 2, maybe 3 inches in height, a couple of inches in reach. I'm curious to see what they actually look like versus what they're listed at, because I would have thought Volkov is maybe a little bit longer in terms of his advantages here. But kicks aren't really a part of Volkov's game. They are. My apologies. They are an active part of his game. Look for him to have a very effective calf kick. He's willing to engage once he closes distance. But Volkov is a guy who's a striker and who's a guy who's going to keep it on the feet. Tom Aspinall beat Sergey Spivak in September. He's somebody that's looking better and better every fight. Good overall fighter. He's shown us hints of everything at this point, from his striking ability to his wrestling ability to his grappling ability. I think he's somebody that maybe still wants to show more. He's just been in there with opponents that he has finished relatively early. I think Aspinall probably is the more well-rounded fighter here. I think about the takedowns. I think about the ground game. I think about the grappling. But Volkov, I think it was after the Curtis Blades fight, if I'm not mistaken. This is someone who decided to fill out the division. I think Volkov used to fight at around 245 until Curtis Blades, took him to school. And now he's coming in at 265 pretty much for every fight that he's in. That additional weight has made it harder to take him down. I think about Marcin Tybura having a hard time taking him down. And when I look at Tom Aspinall as somebody who fights at around 245, the takedowns might not come as easy for Tom Aspinall. It might not be something that we can depend on as much. And that's what could make this a really tricky fight here. Despite Aspinall being the better overall fighter, one part of his game might be nullified because he's going up against somebody who's almost 20 pounds heavier. On the feet, Aspinall is, pretty crafty with his fakes. I think he'll be the quicker one on the feet. I do expect him to control center. But I think Volkov is probably the better striker, at least the more pure striker, without a doubt. But again, we're in London. for this one. I think being in London will fare very well for Tom Aspinall here. I think Volkov pretty much has one way to win the fight, which is by outstriking you, whereas Aspinall can use the striking. Even though Volkov is harder to bring down, Aspinall could use the wrestling. Again, we know he has the grappling to go along with it as well. And again, even on the feet, I think he can be the quicker of the two in terms of his striking. And also, we know this is a 5-round fight. I think being in London, you mentioned it, throughout the card. We both have mentioned it throughout the card. I think being in London sort of gives the nod to Tom Aspinall for rounds that could be 50-50. You think about those middle rounds that could be 50-50. Two judges might see 3 of those middle rounds in favor of Aspinall, whereas all 3 of them may have been 50-50 rounds. So, I think we'll see a couple of 50-50 rounds in this fight. And I think Aspinall will get the nod, at least from 2 judges on them. Like I said, on paper, Aspinall, more diverse, more ways to win. But with Volkov being so hard to take down lately, hard to say whether or not Aspinall can capitalize on that. But, I do have to make a pick here. I am doing a bit of rambling just to give some fair cautions for this fight. It is a pick'em after all. I got to go with the hometown hero here, Tom Aspinall. I think he's going to make a name for himself. I think they're trying to really propel him. You mentioned it earlier as well, needing some new blood in this heavyweight division. And I think Tom Aspinall is that guy to be a legitimate contender going forward. So I'm going Tom Aspinall here. I think his striking can be a little quicker, and I think he can potentially resort to some other advantages he has, notably on the ground.
Yeah, this is a super hard fight here because I think Tom needs to get him out of there in the first 2 rounds. If not, I think Volkov skates away to a late finish or a 5-round decision type of thing. I'm not sure Aspinall can go 5 rounds, and there's a lot of question marks with that. So I think if that's the case, he needs to finish Volkov. And Volkov is a tough guy, is a real tough guy. So this is a hard fight for me. It's basically, what do you think's going to happen? In my mind, I'm thinking it's either Aspinall gets him out in the first 2 rounds, or it doesn't happen. And at that point, in my mind, I'm thinking Volkov would win the fight as it goes on, because his fighting style does not take out much cardio. While Aspinall is bouncing around, throwing heavy shots, Volkov just pushes shots. He saves his cardio, so he's more prepared for 5 rounds. He's been there. Plus, he has a big experience advantage in this fight. Man, it's tough. So I'm going to go with Volkov. Again, this is a fight. I'm just rolling the dice here. I wouldn't put a bet on it, but I'm going to roll with Alexander Volkov in this spot. I think that Aspinall likely blitzes him and knocks him out. But I'm just going to bank on the experience here because there's too many question marks for me with Aspinall. I know what I'm getting out of Volkov. I know what he's bringing to the fight. I know how he's going to fight. I know if he can go 5 rounds. But obviously, Tom Aspinall is a stud. This guy has really good boxing. And I wouldn't be surprised he knocks him out in the first round or 2 rounds. As I said, those are the 2 outcomes I see. But I think as the fight goes on, if he doesn't get that knockout, I think he can I think he can carry this on Volkov. So I'm going to go Volkov to kind of avoid the power in the early rounds and then win as the fight goes on.
With that being said, let's take it to Vegas. Let's consider the main card, of course, and let's consider maybe the underdog that we feel has the best shot at winning.
On the main card, underdog wise, I like my boy Arnold Allen.
Arnold Allen, where is he at? So that one being a pick'em. So of course, Arnold Allen does fit the script of an underdog pick for the sake of our channel. In terms of my underdog pick, I'm going to go on the other side here. I'm going to go Dan Hooker. And I'm also going to make mention of Tom Aspinall as well. I'll sort of put both of them down because I do think both of them will win that fight. In terms of favorite picks, parlay pieces, what are you taking a look at?
Okay, what are the main events? Because
So you have main event. I would say the main card is not offering much. I will say that. You have Ilia Topuria, you have Molly McCann, you have Gunnar Nelson, Paddy Pimblett. You picked Arnold Allen, and then you also picked Alexander Volkov.
okay. So I'm gonna go with man, that Volkov pick, man. Yo, it's like making me feel like I did the, but I'm gonna roll with them. I'm gonna roll with them here, man. Damn. So let me go with Ilia Topuria, Arnold Allen, and Paddy Pimblett. Yeah, that's mine. That's mine.
All right. So those three fights would be a plus 178. $100 would return 278. $250 would return 695. I will preface my picks by mentioning more than likely I would come in this situation, I would combine a couple of prelim fights that I feel pretty good about along with a couple of main card picks that I feel good about. I will also make mention that a couple of picks of yours that I will echo are Paddy Pimblett as well as Ilia Topuria. So I do echo those picks. For the sake of the video, I do have to stick to the main card. And in sticking to the main card, I have to take a little bit of a gamble. And in taking a bit of a gamble, I'm unsurprisingly going with the main event, Tom Aspinall here. So Paddy Pimblett, Ilia Topuria, Tom Aspinall, that will be sort of my official video pick, so to speak. That would be a plus 191. $100 would return 291. For our bigger bettors, $250 would return 727. So let's officially sign off on that note. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. Let us know how you feel about our picks. Let us know what your picks are. And of course, if there's any additional conversation, additional breakdown that you're looking to discover, make mention of it in the comments, and we will be more than happy to provide additional analysis and sort of have some good banter going back and forth. But again, like I said, we are going to officially sign off UFC Fight Night London, UFC Fight Night Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. Again, this has been the main card prediction video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris, and in our usual fashion, let's get this money.
Let's do it.